ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्ते तप्तकांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी ऋषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले शंकराचार्य ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे विशेष मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं कारणं परमानंद माधवं श्रीचैतन्येश्वरम् ओम हरे कृष्णा. So welcome for the Bhagavatam class. It's an auspicious celebration of Mahashivratri also. So our respects, obeisances, prayers to the greatly compassionate Lord Shiva, who is so kind to all living entities, even the most lowest and sinful. So we pray at his lotus feet for his blessings, that we may also develop attraction for the object of his meditation. So our humble respects. So we are continuing today our discussion on the 5th chapter of the 5th Canto, which is entitled The Teachings of Lord Rishabhdev to his sons. We covered around 6 verses, if I'm not wrong, in the last conversation. These teachings are very, very wonderful, very profound, very powerful. In just 20 odd verses, Rishabhdev so beautifully summarizes the entire philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Right from the why, how, what, when, and where also. So all the W's he has answered. Of course, the most important question, or the most, I shouldn't say important, the most primary question to ask is why. Because if when we tell somebody you should become spiritual, the first question to ask is, why should I be spiritual? I'm okay. I like to watch movies, you like to go to temple. That's okay. This is my preference, that is your preference. Some people think like that. It's a matter of, what you like. I like strawberry ice cream, you like butterscotch. and another person doesn't like ice cream, he likes cake. That's it. So this kind of a thinking is at the level of the modes of material nature. But we are not talking about likes and dislikes from a sensual or mental perspective. We are talking about what ought to be done based on one's real eternal nature. So this the questions that are being discussed and the answers that are being discussed are beyond the consideration or beyond the variations that one's uh, context in this material world may bring, any kind. And that's why these questions and importance are questions and answers. Actually, not even question, because this is not so much a question answer conversation. These instructions are very important for all living beings. And the very first verse of this teaching itself makes it very clear. These are universal instructions. Because Nayam Deho Deha Bhajam Nriloke. Deha Bhaj, those who have attained a material body. Instructions are for those who have attained a material body. What does this mean? Anybody who has attained a material body is in a diseased condition. Spiritual. Disease doesn't mean that he needs to go to the hospital or take medicine. He's spiritually diseased. Because only a spiritually diseased person is put into this kind of a entrapment. Correct. For example, if you see somebody is in a jail, you can safely conclude, oh, he must have done something wrong. I mean, let's keep aside that there may be some wrong conviction, that's a different thing. But generally, Yamaraj doesn't make mistakes, but yeah, material world, it is possible. Material judicial system may make mistakes. So similarly, if you see anybody in this jail, in Durga's domain, Durga means the prison keeper. Durga means prison. Durga means that kind of a fortification which cannot be crossed over. Correct? We are all entrapped in this body. Some of you may say, no, I'm not entrapped. Okay, then get out of it. You have 1 hour from now. Let's see how many of us can get out of this entrapment. We can't. We are all fully controlled by the stringent laws of material nature. Stringent laws. We are actually thoroughly bound. We are much more bound than what we can imagine. We are really, really bound. And those who are most bound, they think they are free. It takes a long time after millions of births and finally realizes that I am bound. So even to identify a problem takes so long. So all these instructions are very relevant because the problem statement has to be identified upfront. And essentially the problem statement that Rishabhdev very succinctly identifies and instructs all his sons is essentially this very, very basic principle of spiritual life is that actually everyone wants happiness, but they are looking for it in the wrong place. They're looking for it in the satisfaction of the body. So as long as you are looking for enjoyment within matter, through sensory enjoyment, you are going to be defeated. Parabhavastavad abhotajat. Those who are abodha, those who do not understand this, they are going to be defeated. Because this cannot be done. Not possible. Impossible. Just like you cannot say that uh, I'm so hungry, now I'm going to turn on the TV and watch a video of the best foods which are served in various restaurants across the world. I'm so hungry. So you turn on the TV and put on some food shows. I don't know what are the top food shows in the, the world nowadays, but some famous chef,
Master Chef.
master chef. Okay. So whatever chef is, he's cooking, he may lay out so many items on the table as he's cooking. But is that going to satisfy you? Why? Because there is no substance there. It is only a image. There's no substance. Can you eat what is projected on a TV screen? It may excite you to eat more food. Yes, it can agitate you. But can it satisfy your hunger? It cannot. Much in the same way, the living entity who is looking for happiness, as long as is looking for happiness in the realm of matter, which is not actually substantial, which is actually extraneous to the living entity. It is outside. It actually has no capacity to satisfy the soul. It just tingles the mind. So, first few verses, Lord Rishabhdev focuses on trying to get this point across very strongly. The first thing is don't look for happiness. So that's the first lesson to learn. If that itself we fail, then there is no hope. If ABC also you don't want to learn, how can it be helped? You're walking in the wrong direction. Somebody sees that you are walking, you want to go somewhere and somebody sees you're walking in the wrong direction. I say, stop. I want to explain to you how to go to the destination. He says, no, don't disturb me. I'm too busy. You're taking my time. I don't want you to disturb me in my journey. Don't distract me. Arey Baba, but you're going in the wrong direction. No, I don't want to. You're. So it's so important to have these basic facts straight, because otherwise our whole lifetime will go. In fact, lifetimes after lifetimes after lifetimes will go. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jataresha. Lord Shiva, in his avatar as Adi Shankara, wrote this very beautiful compilation. Just go on endlessly in samsara, being kicked repeatedly. Like Rishabhdev himself says here, for meager happiness, one is kicked repeatedly by Maya. So it takes a long while. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam. After many lifetimes of being beaten up, if the living entity is genuine and sincere, he may reflect by some special good fortune or through some association of some saintly people, he may start reflecting, what is it that I'm doing wrong? He says, let me stop on this path and let me just ponder. What's actually happening? And Rishabhdev is straight away giving the answer right in the beginning. First thing, stop. Stop walking in the wrong direction. My first instruction to you. The path that you are going is the path for misery. The path of trying to enjoy the body more and more is not the path to happiness. This is so difficult for conditioned souls to understand and appreciate. And that is why we don't make so much spiritual progress. Because we cannot wholeheartedly take shelter of the spiritual process unless we are really convinced of this particular principle. And that is what the whole process of anartha nivritti in devotional service focuses on. Anartha nivritti is to remove all the unwanted things, which is essentially all kind of contamination which makes us attracted to illusory things, which actually takes one away from Krishna. So we discussed the first 6 verses where he points out that the human form is for divya tapasya, to do whatever is necessary to achieve Brahma Saukhya, happiness of one's real nature. And because one is eternal, one can actually achieve eternal happiness by tapping into one's real nature. And this human life is very, 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 very precious, because this is the juncture from which one can decide which destination one can go to, whether a higher or a lower. Human life is so important. And if you want to go higher, the visa to go higher is given by, is achieved by Mahat Seva, by serving the great souls. Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahur Vimuktes Tamo Dwaram Yoshitam Sangi Sangam. And those who want to take the flight going downward instead of going upward, they are the ones who are determined to associate with those who are materialistic. Actually, our association immediately betrays our real attraction. It's very easy. I may not know you, but if I see you with people whom I know, if I see what kind of company you are enjoying, where you hang out, what are your hangout places? I'm not talking about very specific business or professional dealings. Those are things which have to be done because they have to be done. But when you have a choice whom you want to be with, and you exercise your free will to choose a particular kind of group, then we know. Without knowing much about them, we know much about them just by that observation of what kind of association they take pleasure in. Because like attracts like. Your aspirations, your consciousness will naturally be gravitated towards similar mentalities, similar energy. So those who are attached to women, or those who are very attached to those who are attached to women, that opens the door to going down. And that is why one must be very careful to associate with Mahatmas. Those Mahatmas who actually understand the real human, the purpose of human life, those who are eager to develop spiritually, those who have realized the futility of material existence. And that's why they're unattached to all these bodily things. Even if they have a house, wife, family, they're generally detached. They are not too. They don't see that as the means to happiness. They see that as a means to serve. So they do whatever is needful, maintain body and soul together, and the real purpose of life remains to make spiritual advancement. But those who are of materialistic tendency, they are so bewildered because of their lust and greed and anger that they go on making mistake after mistake after mistake. Nunam pramattah kurute vikarma yad indriya pritaya. Na sadhu manye yat atmanoyam asan api kleshada ashade. They're so maddened that they foolishly think that by violating the principles of religion and trying to grab happiness, steal away certain things, one can actually be happy. So they end up doing vikarma after vikarma after vikarma. Vikarma is going against the laws of karma, the laws of dharma. That is what materialistic attachment forces us to do. Krishna, when Arjuna asked Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, what is it that forces a man to act sinfully, even though he doesn't want to? Correct? I mean, not just we who are sitting here, but generally most people intuitively know what is right and what is wrong. Is it not? I'm not talking about very deep religious principles of yoga and all that, but generally in terms of at least the basic things about character, the basic things about morality. Most people know, at least on paper they know, technically they know. How many are able to follow? And why are they not able to follow? That's the question of Arjun. What is forcing people to commit sin? It seems they are being forced. They know, but they are being forced. Correct? For example, the cigarette pack. Statutory warning. Cigarette smoking is injurious to health. It's saying you will die. It's showing people dying, big pictures, cancer, this, that. People are still holding and so is it that they don't know? They know, but they cannot still say no. They know, but they cannot say no. No. Why? Kama esha krodha esha rajoguna samudbhava. Mahashano mahapapma vidhena mihaverinam. The enemy is lust, which becomes transformed to wrath. So this intense attraction to enjoy at a material level bewilders the intelligence. Nunam pramattaha. Start doing vikarma and they just get messed up. They are so short-sighted that they try to enjoy this little happiness, and in chasing that, they get so deeply entangled within the mire of materialistic pleasure that they totally lose track. Life after life after life. Until the living entity honestly starts self-introspection. What is it that I'm doing wrong? What is it that I'm doing wrong? Of course, whenever the living entity becomes sincere and starts asking such questions, the Lord will help a living entity by guiding them to a source where they can get the relevant knowledge. And the solution is not just becoming pious. We discussed this as well. The solution is not changing from sin to piety, because both are ultimately material. One must get out of the paradigm of trying to find happiness in matter. Because trying to go from sin to piety is like watching a TV and changing from a show which is showing how to cook non-veg food to a show which is showing how to cook pure vegetarian food. Because seeing vegetarian cooking is better than seeing non-vegetarian food cooking. But at the end of the day, you cannot eat either, because it is illusory. As long as it is on the TV, you cannot, because it is extraneous to you. So ultimately, neither material happiness nor material sin or distress actually touch the soul. And that is why even material happiness cannot satisfy the soul. It is extraneous. And this emptiness is continuously felt by the living entity. Why are we impelled to try to do something? Because there's an emptiness that the soul feels. The soul is actually hankering for something, but in a bewildered condition doesn't know what it is looking for. George Harrison, in his introduction to the Krishna book, says very nicely. How many of you have read? I think it's in the foreword, probably not the introduction. It's the foreword, if I'm not. How many of you have read that? It's a very famous statement by George Harrison. Anybody remembers?
Yeah, this is Prashant. Hari Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu, Hari Prabhu. What is the statement? Yeah.
Everyone is looking for Krishna. Some don't realize it. Something
Very,
to that effect. I
very
may not
good.
be verbatim, but yeah.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. So it's a very classic statement. This is actually everybody is looking for Krishna. They just don't know that they're looking for Krishna. Because the soul, by its very nature of being spiritual and being by nature part and parcel, is looking for that eternal loving relationship with its source, the Supreme, where it can find that eternal rasa in an eternal relationship where there is pure knowledge and bliss. But when it becomes bewildered and tries to find the same in matter, it becomes totally lost. It's not able to get it. Or I'm seeing so many things on the TV, but why I can't? Why my hunger is not being satisfied? Why it's not being satisfied? Why? It's all illusory. It is not related to this. And that is why these instructions by Rishabhdev are so important. To start with the why. Because if you don't understand this, if you continue on this path, if you simply become religious and not spiritual, then you may be a little better off in the sense that you may suffer slightly less, but you're not going to make any lasting solution to the problems of material existence. So please develop love for the Supreme Lord. Until one has developed that love, Pritirna Yavan Mai Vasudeve, you will not be liberated from material existence. So Rishabhdev is explaining to his sons, he continues his education to his sons by saying that a person may think he's very learned, but actually he's foolish. He's actually mad if he is not able to see the futility of material existence, the futility of endeavoring for happiness in sensual things. So the basic definition of a learned person from a spiritual perspective, Rishabhdev is saying, first thing is they have to understand where happiness lies. Not this direction, but this direction. Prahlad Maharaj says the same thing. He says people are so bewildered. People don't understand where their real self-interest lies. They don't know how to be really selfish. Nate viduhu swarthagatim hi Vishnu. Surashaya ye bahirarthamanim. These people do not understand that the real self-interest, the real happiness lies in becoming devotees of Vishnu. Understand? Durashaya, hopeless is the situation of those who are trying to find happiness outside. Durashaya ye bahir arthamani. They think they are serving their own self-interest, but actually they are not. Because they don't know the technology of happiness. They are bewildered. So Rishabhdev says, one must understand. A person cannot be considered learned unless he has figured this out, not just theoretically. Oh, I heard like this in Bhagavatam class. That's okay. That's a good beginning. We have to work to realize this point. And this is hard work. This is hard work because realization of this statement is about the process of purifying the heart from these contaminating desires and actually being firmly fixed in the conviction that one's real happiness lies in serving the Lord. And that's not an easy thing. Forgetting their real self-interest, swartha, the same word is used by Rishabhdev. He suffers in this hellish material existence attached to a home which is centered around materialistic sex life. And the word uses maithunya agaram. Maithunya agar means a abode of sex life, which means essentially the living entity is consciousness. The living entity who's attached to material enjoyment, is consciousness is circulating around this one point. We discussed this a bit last time also. And there's a very famous verse after this which Rishabhdev quotes. Very famous verse. And I'm going to read it. He says, actually we discussed this point briefly without referring to the verse. I'll not spend much time. It's a very famous verse. Sahasriya mithuni bhavametad tayor mitho hridaya granthi mahu atak griha kshetra sutapta vittair janasya mohoyam aham mameti. This is also quoted by Prabhupada so many times. Actually, many of these verses from Rishabhdev's teaching are quoted so often because they are such powerful instructions. This is the verse which says that the basic principle of material entanglement is this very strong attraction between the male and female. That is the basis of material entanglement, because that attraction is the culmination or the highest pinnacle of the expression of the desire of the soul to enjoy independent of Krishna at a material realm. Of course, when you pull that desire to the very extreme, it transforms into the desire of trying to become God. But at least within the realm of this world here, we see the highest expression in the form of wanting to enjoy the body in a lusty way. This kind of an attraction between the male and female, it's a very strong knot within the heart. Hridaya Granthi. Have you ever experienced that, Nowadays, we don't use so many, nadas, places in our, clothes and dresses and other things. When we were younger, we used to have perhaps more clothes which had sometimes, of course, shoelace. Sometimes have you come across a situation where there is either in the cloth or anywhere you have tied a knot. It is so tight and it's got so entangled you cannot disentangle it. Have you ever been in a situation that your pajama nada has got so badly entangled and stuck and you want to go to the washroom and you're not able to open the knot and you don't know what to do? You're trying, but you can't open the knot. Very strong, very strongly entangled. So we try also, we cannot. It's a very hard knot. So like that, a hard knot. And where is this knot formed? The heart. This knot represents a very strong attachment. The attachment is so strong that even though people may give spiritual instructions, so many things are discussed. We may attend so many classes. We may give classes. So just because I am giving classes doesn't mean I'm necessarily fully free from the knot of material existence. It's not so easy. Of course, we are speaking so that we'll become free, at least at our level. But we don't claim to be fully free. Of course, as we get purified, and this is the point that we are going to come to shortly, as we become purified, slowly the knot slackens. Yes? Slackens. Slackens means what was so tight. Remember, at least when we were young, our mother would come to help us to open the knot when it would get tight. So she'll take a pin, she'll put it between the knot and try to pull it and loosen. Because unless you loosen the knot a little bit, you cannot disentangle it, correct? You have to loosen it first. So slightly. Then you can start pulling the strings from the right so that the whole thing will become loose. So the more one enjoys materialistic life, especially in the form of lust between the male and female, the Hridaya Granthi becomes very strong. No other activity makes the Hridaya Granthi as strong. And that is why this kind of a desire has to be controlled. And that is why the institution of marriage is created, so that in a religious way one can manage it. Otherwise, it will create absolute chaos and degrade us downwards. Because unrestricted sense enjoyment is the realm of animals, not humans. Because from there comes atagraha, sutta, apta, vitta. From here comes house. Oh, now I have partner. I need house. I need wealth. I'll have children. Then, relatives, sutta, apta, vitta, money. This goes on, vistar. Huh? Do you know the word stri? Stri. The word stri can be seen in a negative way and positive way. Now, again, this is not a criticism of women, but this is a spiritual principle. So, of course, it can be applied positively, it can be applied negatively. It depends on us. The word stri comes from the root to expand, vistar. Have you heard the word vistar? Hindi mein bolte hain na, vistar karna. Vistar means to expand. Stri has the same meaning. It comes from the same root, to expand. Yeah. So the woman expands the material existence of the man. Ata graha, sutta, apta, vitta. All his life, struggling hard to manage all these things. Janasya mohoyam, and then he gets trapped in this so much. Janasya mohoyam, aham, mame. Of course, this is in a negative sense. In a positive sense also, one can see that the woman expands. Actually, the woman can contribute in a positive way also. Very much. There was one very nice quote. I don't remember all of it. It said that if you give a woman a house, she will make it a home. If you give her grains and vegetables, she will make a meal. If you give her a seed, she will give you a child. And so on and so forth. So the feminine energy can be used in a negative way, it can be in a positive way. But generally, those who are pramattaha, we're talking about the pramatta category. Pramatta means totally bewildered by the desire for material enjoyment. Obviously, their vistar is going to be in the sense of material entanglement. So he says, Rishabhdev says it is very important to, if you want to make spiritual advancement, if you want to take the flight upwards and not the flight downwards, not the Yoshita Sangi Sangam journey from this important juncture of human life, but you must loosen, because it's not that the knot, I'll stop the knot from forming. Are Baba, since millions of lives you are here, the knot is already there. Unless any of you have come from the spiritual world, it's a different story. But otherwise, the knot is already there for us. The Granthi is there. Of course, we just make it stronger in this life. And the more we continue to do the same kind of samskaras of material enjoyment, we just tighten the knot. So the first step for those who are mumukshus, those who are aspiring to be liberated from the entanglement of the modes and go beyond samsara and ultimately achieve the lotus feet of the Lord. The first step for them, Rishabhdev explains, is to, you cannot immediately remove the knot. First thing, you have to slacken it a bit. Thoda loose kar do usko. First step. If it's too tight, nothing can be done. First, just make it a little bit loose. Then we can work on disentangling it. So the process of making the knot loose is actually the process of dissolving the false ego. Because the knot is the basic ingredient of the knot is the false ego. This whole desire, aham and mama, is based on this aham identity. Aham comes first, right? Aham, and then from aham comes mama. If there's no aham, then the mama will not come only. And that aham is a false identity. There's a false ego, there is a pure ego. So that false ego, that aham, has to be slackened. And how is that slackened? First, we have to understand what makes it tighter. When we continue to act with a selfish desire, it becomes tighter. When we act with a selfless desire, when we do acts of service, when we do acts not for my enjoyment, but for, ideally for the Lord, but at least, if not that far, at least not for myself, for somebody else's benefit, to start with, at least. That one slowly loosens the false ego. So what was very tight slightly becomes loose. The ego, which is holding so tightly. So one must work in a way that the I and mine, this illusion of I and mine becomes a bit slackened. Because once that is slackened, then one can start understanding and appreciating the spiritual subject matter and then seriously take to the process of spiritual advance. The knot is too tight. It's like a pot which is upside down. You're pouring so much water. You put Bhagavad Gita, you may pour Bhagavatam on top, Chaitanya Charitamrita, everything will flow and go. Because the soul is totally looking in the opposite direction. It's not even just so focused on materialistic enjoyment. It's very difficult. So Rishabhdev now, he spends around 5 verses just to explain the process by which one slackens the knot. Very interesting thing. And he explains roughly 25 principles or processes that one must incorporate into one's living so that one can slacken the knot and start the process of disentanglement. And all this is the tapo divyam that he's talking about. Divya tapasya, which means whether you like it or not, you do it. So we'll quickly go through what are the 25 he mentions. I'll not discuss in detail because otherwise it will go on and on and on. So I'm going to just quickly read. What is the process to destroy this ahankara and to attain liberation? And ultimately, all of this comes down to dissolving the false ego. At the end of the day, if you analyze this very deeply. Because actually the true ego is always there inside. When we remove the covering of the false ego, the true ego will shine forth. What is the true ego? Jivera Swarupoi Krishnera Nityadas. Krishnasya Tatastha Shakti Bheda Veda Prakash. The true ego. Ego means identity. The word ego itself is not negative. Sometimes we use the word ego, but ego itself doesn't mean, is not bad. Because the word ego just means identity. A sense of I am that every conscious entity has. The question is, I am. After that, I am. There's a fill in the blank. What have you filled in that blank? So what we are supposed to fill in is, I am Krishna Das. Krishna Das has to be filled in. Jiver Swarup Hoy Krishnera Nityadas. So we'll quickly go through the 25 principles. So he says, first principle, following the Guru. So first, Baba, you are so entangled. You need help. You cannot untie it yourself. Like a small child goes to the mother. No, I don't know. Sometimes, I don't know whether when we were children, when we try to disentangle, we make it worse. We do things which actually should not be done and we make it worse. So first you have to go to somebody who can help, because sometimes we are not in a position to help ourselves. We are so badly entangled. So serve the Guru, approach the Guru and serve him with devotion. Hamse Guru Mai Bhaktyanuvritya. Detach yourself from matter. Tolerate the dualities. While we are in the material world, don't be disturbed. Tolerate the dualities. Understand the miserable condition that the conditioned living entities are in. Continuously inquire about the truth. Try to understand. Perform austerities, whatever is necessary. Do what is to be done. Don't do what is not to be done. And give up this continuous chase for sense enjoyment. Engage your activities in the Lord's service. Mat karma bhir. And always hear about my topics. Mat kathaya cha nityam. Associate with my devotees. Mat deva sangat. And chant and glorify my transcendental qualities in their association. Guna kirtanan me. So the process of devotional is very important. He's mentioning very, very explicitly. Engage in activities to serve me, associate with devotees, chant and discuss Krishna Katha. And as far as dealing with public and other people is concerned, make sure you don't have any enmity. Nirvair, see everybody equally. Very important. Sometimes we follow the positive principles, but we do not avoid the negative and we mess up our own spiritual progress. It's important that a sadhaka is careful not to consider anybody as an enemy. Actually, a sincere sadhaka doesn't consider anybody as an enemy. Nirvaira. And they are samaha. Samaha means they see everybody equally. Upashamayana means they subdue anger, they control anger. Abandon bodily identification. Read revealed scriptures. Adhyatma yogena. They live in a secluded place. Live in a secluded place means that they are careful to not people. Living in a secluded place means that. Control the prana, the mind and the senses. Develop faith in the Vedic scriptures. Practice brahmacharya. Perform your prescribed duties properly. Don't unnecessarily talk. Don't do prajalpa. This is actually a very important principle. Prajalpa really, really spoils our consciousness. This is a very big topic, so I'll not go into that. The prajalpa is unnecessary, talking about unnecessary things which are not serving any value. Next, he says, see my presence everywhere. Sarvatra madabhava vichakshanena. One must develop the vision gradually through spiritual knowledge that yes, everything that I am seeing is related to the Lord. Initially, we are taught in our spiritual life to see as matter and spirit. Yes. Soul and this is all matter. This is all Maya. But when a devotee becomes more advanced in consciousness, he sees everything in connection with Krishna, including what he saw earlier as matter. He sees this is Krishna's energy. It's no longer just energy, it's Krishna's energy. So one sees Krishna connection everywhere, and that is why he becomes Krishna conscious. He sees Krishna everywhere. This is how you see Krishna everywhere, right? Otherwise, how will you see Krishna everywhere? When you see, some people come to Bombay. Those who are not staying in Bombay, they come to Bombay. They have heard so much of Bollywood. They'll come to Bombay and they want to see, the film stars. You cannot always get to see the film stars. But even if you cannot come and get to see the film star, they will stand outside their bungalow. They'll stand outside Mannat at Bandra West. And they will see Shah Rukh Khan's bungalow. And sometimes, if they are a little bit more luckier, they'll see his car coming out from, I don't know, the glass is tinted. But even if they cannot see him, when they see the building, they're actually seeing him in the sense that in their consciousness, they are seeing him. They're not seeing the building, right? They can see any building. Why they are seeing that building? They're seeing that building because that building is seen in connection with him. So a devotee, when he becomes advanced in knowledge, he is connected to Krishna, where Krishna is not. What seemed to me as material is actually spiritual because everything is connected to Krishna and meant for his service. That's a higher vision. Initially, one sees matter and spirit at a more higher level. One cannot jump there very quickly, but eventually one will come to that realization that actually material simply means trying to use what is Krishna's for my enjoyment. That is all that material means. Otherwise, actually, there is nothing material. Everything is eternal and in connection with Krishna. The manifestation may be temporary, but the energy is eternal and it is Krishna's. And it is meant for his service. So seeing my presence everywhere, sarvatra mad bhava vichakshanena, and then jnanena vijnana virajitena, acquiring knowledge which produces self-realization, and yogena, practicing yoga. So these are 25 principles. I think most of these you are aware, and we have discussed most of these principles at various stages across various verses. So nothing is like a big revelation. But very nicely, Rishabhdev has compiled all these 25 principles and given in a set of 5 verses. So comprehensive. Essentially, saying is follow this process. Your hard knot of material existence will gradually become disentangled. The aham and mama will be slowly dissolved, and you will progress towards the supreme destination. The karmashaya, your strong desire for fruitive activity, first thing you have to break is that asha. What is the asha? The hope. What is the hope? What is the hope that we have to break? The hope that we can find lasting happiness in the material world. It's a very nice Sanskrit Subhashit. Trying to see whether I can recollect the verse. The verse says, maybe I will recollect it later, but the verse says essentially that Ashanam Manushanam Kachit Ascharya Shrinkhala Jaya Vaddha Pradavanti Jaya Muktos Tishtati Panguvat. I learned this in school 35, 40 years ago. Somehow it stuck in my mind. That there is this very amazing chain which is called hope. Hope, Hope, hope. Asha. Asha means hope, right? This amazing chain. Why? What we use chain for? We use chain for tying something, isn't it? But this Asha chain, this chain of Asha, it's a very interesting chain. Why? Jaya Baddha Pradhavanti, because whoever is tied with the chain of the hope of material enjoyment is running around everywhere. He's tied, but he's running. Normally, a tied person cannot run around, right? But if you are tied with the hope, with the chain of hope of material enjoyment, you are running around. Iti uti dhai, Chaitanya Charitamrita says. Iti dhai means runs around here and there to find material enjoyment. Yaya baddha pradhavanti, yaya mukta, and he who is free from this chain of hope, of material enjoyment. Shtati panguvat. He is sitting in one place, not moving, not running around, because he realized that material enjoyment is hope, is is a hopeless thing. It's not going to give me any lasting pleasure. So whatever little I get by myself, automatically without extraneous endeavor, I will do, and I will just focus on the real purpose of life. So it is very important to be free from this karmashayam. So Rishabhdev says, if you follow the process that I've explained to you, you will become free from the karmashayam. And as you become free, this knot will become loosened. And in that way, you will progress towards the stage of liberation. So what this means is, sometimes we are so focused only on Krishna, but we fail to realize that we also have to disentangle the anchor of material enjoyment. If we do not consciously make an effort to disentangle ourselves from the strong desire to enjoy materialistic enjoyment, then one will remain anchored to the material world. If you're sitting in a boat, you're rowing. You know the story of the marriage party, right? We have mentioned this long back. At night, one marriage party came to the river side, and that marriage party said, "Oh, tomorrow morning we have marriage in the other village on the other side of the river. Oh, boatman, can you take us all, our barat, to the other side?" I said, yeah, no problem. Come sit. It was pitch dark. It was late night. He said, by tomorrow morning, you'll reach just in time. They all sat, and he told them, you all sleep. I will take care of the rowing. You don't have to worry. You get up fresh and we'll be on the other side. And he's rowing. Next day morning, sunrise comes and everybody gets up. The boatman is still rowing very hard. And then they look around, they see they are still on the same side of the river bank. Even though this person is rowing hard. And then they realize their utter dismay that the boatman forgot to remove the anchor that he had tied the boat to on the other bank. Correct? The boats are anchored to the bank, right? So that they don't float away. But before you can take off, you have to first remove the anchor. Then only you can go away from the bank. If you're just rowing and not removing the anchor, you're not going to get anywhere. So we may be doing devotional service, but if you don't remove the anchor, the karmashayam is not removed. Of course, bhakti itself is powerful to destroy the karmashayam, but the thing is, if we don't desire to remove if we don't have an explicit intent to give up the desire to enjoy material, if we are cultivating material enjoyment intentionally and also doing devotional service, then we are like keeping the anchor there in the same place. the karmashayam will not go. Because unless we consciously want to remove the desire for material enjoyment, it will not go. So if we follow the process properly, then these two things will happen. The karmashayam will be through proper knowledge, the ignorance which leads to this karmashayam, this false hope of material enjoyment will be removed, and the hard knot will be broken. And eventually, as one actually becomes liberated, Rishabhdev says that then one doesn't even have to follow this process, whatever I have given. Because most of this process is disentangling. Once one has become actually self-realized, one has actually achieved pure devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then you can just stick with bhakti. You don't need any other processes. You don't need yoga, you don't need jnana, you don't need karma. Bhakti is the only process which is also the process, is also the means and also the goal. All others are only means, they are not a goal. Why he's mentioning this is because some of the principles that he has mentioned are related to yoga, karma, or jnana. So all those principles can be known. What will be left? Only the principles that he has mentioned with respect to devotional service. What are they? Associate with devotees, chant the holy name, serve me. All other principles can go away once one becomes fully self-realized, because one is already situated in one's constitutional position. So in this way, we have come to verse 14. It's 10:05. So being conscious of the time, and given that we are all still entangled in so many duties, we will consciously pause here. So essentially what we discussed today is how one should cut through the knot of illusion by following the process of attaining liberation. The summary study by Rishabhdev. So it's a very beautiful set of verses. I strongly encourage, please read the verses and the purports. This is very, very, very powerful. It's so many beautiful. So I'm opening up the floor if there are any questions or comments.
Prabhuji Tarun here. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Tarun.
Prabhuji, question is the same point which you are telling to open the anchor. Sometimes you want to open anchor, but there are some external factor which does not let you open. So how can we just make sure we are able to open and then sail through the boat? Means
Give me an example.
For example, means actually I put two questions and both are I think related to each other. So the first, so I'm just mixing them both. So let's suppose there is a sin, right? And you don't want to commit a sin, but there are the external factors which making you commit. Means always if you go out, it always happens with you. You don't want to do, but some external factors are forcing you to commit. So how can you avoid such things in a spiritual way?
So that's what Krishna answers to Arjuna, right? When Arjuna asks, what is it that forces one? He says, Kama Esha, Krodha Esha. And Krishna also gives a solution. He doesn't talk simply about the problem, right? So it begins with spiritual knowledge. Yeah. So we have to cultivate knowledge in the association of devotees. And with that knowledge both of the philosophy and knowledge of the sadhana, when we practice the principles of sadhana, which are a part of the knowledge that we gather, then we will gradually, both through purification and through spiritual strength, be able to say no. Removing the anchor also requires strength, spiritual strength. Nayam atma balahine na labhya. Na medhaya na bahuna shrutena. Not simply by intelligence, not simply by knowing. Information is not enough. Everybody knows what is sin, right? That's what we discuss. Everybody knows, but not everybody can lift the anchor. Because the anchor is heavy. Heavy with what? heavy with the attachment, heavy with the karmashaya. I want to enjoy. So when we follow this process, see, initially we may not be able to follow the process perfectly. It is not that on day one we can follow all 25 principles wonderfully. It's okay. We can follow all processes 5%. Just like when we go the first day to the gym, right? If you have never been to the gym, you start with, that one slab of weight. All others are laughing. What is this guy doing? Everybody is stacking up 10, bricks of metal, cold iron, and pumping iron, as they call it. I don't know. I'm not so much into gyms, but they are pumping, and this guy is, But everybody started like that. You have to start with your capacity. And when you work out at your capacity, you increase your strength, and then you can take on more capacity. You increase the capacity. So removing the anchor is not about is not going to happen like this. So it will take some time before we have sufficient strength, but that's a process gradually. So it's a long process of gradual purification of the heart, so that one will eventually have that firm conviction. The karmashayam will totally be dismantled. So to the extent we are purified, to that extent. But we will, as we do our sadhana, we will be able to see this in our own life. See, when we started, when I started practicing the principles of, when I first read and heard about Krishna consciousness, I was thinking, oh, this philosophy is so wonderful, but I will never be able to practice it. I was thinking like that. Why I was thinking, oh, I have to follow this. This is impossible. This life, no chance. But it seems like that because you don't have spiritual strength. It seems impossible. Like one of my colleagues at work told me, I like your Krishna consciousness, everything wonderful, but I can never be like this. I said, yeah, I also used to think like that 30 years ago, that I can also never be like this, but I am like that. And now I'm like that, I'm helping others also to become like that. I'm serving others, trying to, inspire them to be like that. And that happens through acquiring spiritual strength, which begins with association and knowledge. And of course, leading to sadhana. So our strength increases. So as time goes, as we become more and more purified, we will ourselves see we get more strength. Initially, it will come in the form of regular chanting, regularly studying, regular association. Gradually, it will come to the point of slowly beginning to say no to things which are not good for us, whether it is with respect to food, whether it is with respect to association, whatever various categories of activities. So we will be able to observe this in our own lives gradually. It is also a divya tapasya to come and listen to Bhagavatam, every Saturday. So the fact that you all are coming and doing that means you have done progress. Because on a Saturday evening, how many people want to hear Bhagavatam? They would rather, sit on their sofa couch and put the TV on and watch something else. Yeah. So this is also progress, is it not? So just keep on the job. Eventually, we will have strength to totally disengage the anchor altogether. Because it's not just one big anchor that we have. We have thousands of anchors. We have to untangle one by one. Take some time. And that's why we need Krishna's grace. We need Guru's grace. Then the process will become much faster.
True.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Krishna.
Anything else? Hare Krishna. Okay. Anything?
So just point to add, actually, not in terms of the class. So we used to heard the autobiography of Tulsidas ji,
Okay.
and there is a doha there when they just started, and this is somewhere in line what we were basically listening and hearing today. So this is something that the अस्तित्व चल में देह ममता में जैसी प्रीति ऐसी हो श्री राम में तो होती न भवभीति. This is something we learned in the class 8, and this is his wife basically spoke to Tulsidas ji. Hey, you are so much entangled, right word actually, with me. Better if you go and do service with Lord Rama, you will be free from these things. So this is something I think the same point today in these last two classes we really learned the meaning of that. That the same point which you are basically explaining, we should be free and try not to be so much integral in this sense enjoyment. I think that is the same thing was
This
written there, we
principle,
could not understand.
this principle is there in all systems within our Vedic system. No matter which school you go to, unless you're talking about altogether the Vama Pantha, which is going into Tamogun tantric traditions. If you leave that aside, almost all traditions talk the same thing about. So yeah, and for us, we have the greatest means of detachment, and the greatest means of detachment is developing attachment to the lotus feet of the Lord and for His service. That is what gives one true detachment, because only when we have a higher pleasure, raso varjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartati, only when we develop a higher pleasure, ultimately it is possible to give up material enjoyment only when we have a better option. And that better option needs to be cultivated. So when we cultivate the bhakti lata through sadhana, when we start experiencing a higher taste, to the extent we experience it, we are able to say no to Maya. And also that it is, even for grihasthas, whether it is Tulsidas ji, of course, he's such a great personality, but even for all of us, the secret to not getting entangled for us who are in family life is to not see, or is rather to see the spouse, the family, and everything as a means to serve, as an assistance to serve, and not as an object of one's enjoyment. So if one develops that consciousness, then the same thing which can cause entanglement can actually be the cause of one's liberation. So the Shastras have strong statements which condemn association with the opposite sex. And this applies in both directions. Even those three is mentioned. This doesn't mean that woman is the problem. It's not that the woman is the problem. The problem is the desire to enjoy, not woman per se. So for the man, the woman; for the woman, the man. Either way. But there are also verses in the scriptures which have glorified greatly successful candidates because they had a wonderful spouse that they were able to. So it's a benediction. It's a matter of orientation. The same thorn which is pricking, which has entered into the foot. Correct? When we were young, I don't know, nowadays it may not be happening. But when we were playing, in garden, sometimes there'll be a thorn which will go in. A small one, it'll go in and we cannot even remove it. So how do we remove the thorn? Sometimes we have to take another thorn, pluck out thorn which is stuck in the foot. Use a thorn to remove a thorn. So the same things which are problems can also become a solution when applied properly. The Acharyas give another example. The same milk which causes diarrhea can be cured by milk which is used in the form of yogurt. if you get diarrhea with milk, you can cure it with milk, but in the form of yogurt. So it is milk, but it is transformed milk. Similarly, material things may entangle, but the same material things, when they are transformed by the consciousness to not be objects of enjoyment, but rather objects of service, or by seeing them in connection with the Lord, can actually help us to be disentangled. That's why, like what we discussed earlier, ultimately nothing is material. The material is our vision. Our vision is that our vision of duality is the problem. There's no problem outside. All problem is inside. Neither man is bad nor woman is bad. Prabhupada would say, they would ask, Prabhupada, you're criticizing women. I said, no, neither man is bad nor woman is bad. But when they come together for enjoyment, it is bad. But if they come together for service, it is not bad. Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Tarun. So I appreciate you are coming regularly. So you're making advancement. Congratulations to you.
Thank you very much, sir. All credit to you and the Surajji. Hare
Krishna. I'm happy to be your servant. Yes, Suraj is amazing personality. Suraj has credits of helping many devotees make spiritual advancement. Suraj and Shalini. Huh?
It was Tarun who approached me to organize that function, Gita Jayanti.
Yes, you are all wonderful. That's what I'm saying. All of you are wonderful. So everybody is engaged in some way or the other. So we all make advancement. Okay. So again, thank you all for the Bhagavatam class, and we offer our respectful obeisances again, not only to the Srimad Bhagavat and Rishabhdev and all the wonderful personalities and devotees, also to Lord Shiva again, not forgetting. Namah Shivaya, Sambhaya, Saganaya, Sunavesa Nandine, Sagangaya, Savishaya Namo Namah. So we pray again to the so merciful Ashutosh Lord Shiva, kindly bestow his causeless mercy on all of us. Lord Shiva is also in charge of the false ego, at the material ego. So that's a topic, actually we briefly discussed that earlier. But Lord Shiva can greatly help us to purify ourselves from our false ego. So we can receive his favor. And Lord Shiva is such a great devotee. Even though he is the Lord, he is also a very, very great lover of Krishna. So his blessings will help us a long, long way in our quest. So if you get the opportunity, please do offer whatever seva puja to him and seek his blessings on this auspicious day. And very easily he will bestow his blessings. Lord Shiva is amongst the easiest to please. Lord Shiva is very, very, it's very easy. Very easy to please. Just a little bit. He'll become, especially if you do it sincerely without any material motivation. Jai, all glories to Lord Shiva. So thank you very much. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Samaveta Gaura Bhakta. I'll see you all on Wednesday. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Haribo, Nindulika Mataji, Shri Sundar. Thank you everyone. Shri Devi Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Archana ji. Hare Krishna. Leela Mataji. Hare Krishna. Yes, thank you, Tarun, Anand Sundari Mataji, Sneha ji. We are happy to see you back, and we hope you are maintaining your strength through all the challenges. Yeah, so welcome back.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.